Dalton Risner week. It's officially upon us. The Vikings have signed the social media darling before he even wore purple offensive guard. It's pretty crazy that a right guard, or I guess he was a left guard for most of his career with the Denver Broncos, but he's an offensive guard. It's crazy how he got as much publicity that he did. It's really a testament to the state of the Vikings offensive line. So, Vikings signed an offensive lineman earlier this week. A lot of that is due to the fact that there's been some injuries already. The Vikings have already played 8 offensive linemen in 2 games. Christian Darrisaw has been banged up. Grant Bradbury has only played 7 snaps. And Oli Udoh is done for the year. So there's been a shuffle. There's been a lot of moving parts and losses already. And depth was one thing. And also, you have to imagine that performance had to be a big part of that as well.
Yeah, I think that my big note with a style next to it for this is apologies to Ed Ingram, who was on a pretty solid pace to break the single season sack record. He was at least going to get upwards of he was going to get double digits this year. It looks like he will not be able to break the sack record by knocking balls out of Kirk Cousins' hand and stepping on his ankle, trying to shadow his bones. And yeah, just overall an upgrade. The negative side of Dalton Risner, because everyone is kind of talking about Dalton Risner as if he is instant fix to the offensive line. Well, Super Bowl bound, never giving up a pressure the rest of the way. No, he's a free agent for a reason. Broncos didn't extend him for a reason. Part of that might have been because he yelled at Russell Wilson on the sideline, because Russell Wilson played very badly last year. But, you look at his PFF grades and you look at him on film and all of this stuff, you see somebody who struggles to get to the second level in the run game, is definitely more of a kind of what I want out of an offensive lineman, a lazy fat guy who is going to bully people and not let his quarterback get hit. He's a better pass blocker than a run blocker. I still like the signing. I don't care that he can't get up and block a linebacker. I'd rather get a consistent 3-yard rush with power running and just running behind Dalton Risner and trusting him to be bigger and stronger, more technically sound than the defensive tackles. And know that Kirk Cousins isn't going to die on the field. So I'm very excited. And I also have written down here, he's a better pass blocker. Who cares? Sling the damn ball. Zimmer always said run the damn ball. Sling it. Drop Cousins back 150 times a game if it takes that. Looks like we've lost Will for a second. I'm going to very quickly give my Alexander Mattison take. Stop it. Cut it out. Don't message Alexander Mattison and threaten him. Don't message Alexander Mattison and be a racist. Here's another idea. Let's not be racist. Let's be good people. Minnesota is supposed to be nice. That's the whole shtick of the state and of the Midwest in general. So let's not be racist, and let's not, let's make guys feel like they want to play here, because I guarantee that there are going to be some free agents in the future that look at the Alexander Mattison situation and say, do I want to go play for the racist team or for the racist fan base? And you just don't want to get labeled that way. I think that 99% of Vikings fans are, good people who wouldn't even think to message Alexander Mattison after a game, let alone message him, you suck and, racial slurs and all this stuff. So let's just cut that out. So that's my Alexander Mattison take. I think we all agree on that.
Yeah, I don't have a ton more to say. I wrote an article on this earlier this week, just because I felt it was a very pertinent issue and very, it's just very important to address. And a big part of why I wanted to write an article on it was because I didn't hear about it, firsthand. It was it was on the bottom of the Sports Center ticker, it was not mentioned. It was hardly on Twitter. It was when I went to Twitter to try and find more information on it, Caleb Williams and Kwesi were still trending, but there was nothing about Alexander Mattison. And in some ways, the whole situation, I mean, not in some ways, it blatantly, it just sucks. And it's a horrible thing to see that, a football game can be something that someone feels entitled to go and threaten someone's life over, or, wish ill on them because he had a bad game. And, you know, kind of the angle with which I took with my article, and I'll just kind of restate it now, is that this is an opportunity now, for us as fans and for the team. It's very clear that the team is responding well to this, but especially for us as fans to take this as a chance to lift up the players, to lift up each other, to support Alexander Mattison directly. Go buy his jersey, buy some of his merchandise from his I Am Gifted Foundation. And it's an opportunity to really support him, and to support players in general. And, rather than ripping them, even on social media and comment sections, why don't we take it as a chance to remind ourselves to, spread encouraging messages about these players. And if you're going to say something directly to a player on social media, say something encouraging, say something uplifting. And so I don't know, it's a very like somber thing, but I also think that the Vikings and their players and their staff and organization as a whole has responded very well to this.
I
I think
agree.
it took a lot of courage for Alexander Mattison to say what happened. And it's been encouraging to see what has come from it. So
I don't want
yeah, go ahead.
I don't want to spend like a ton of time. Like, I don't want to do like, this is going to be a long show because we still have to talk about Cam Akers. We have a whole segment about the 0-2 teams that we should still have faith in. And also, there's a game on Sunday that we're going to break down. So we're going to be here for a while. Strap in. That's just a little teaser. But I do think that, you see, and I'm not equating these two things because I don't think, and I don't want to get political, but I really don't even think this is a political thing to say.
It's not.
I'm just trying not to equate the two things, is what I'm saying. Damar Hamlin obviously has this tragedy happen to him, which is, in my opinion, like the highest tragedy that you can experience. He died on the football field. And so
Yeah.
you saw the fan base, and not the Bills fan base, the NFL kind of rally around Damar Hamlin.
Yeah.
And they turned what was like a small toy drive foundation that he did for Christmas like 2 years ago. You saw it explode with donations, and you saw celebrities chiming in. And obviously the circumstances are different, but it would be cool to see, more than just, podcast hosts coming on and speaking to, maybe 100 people and saying, hey, don't be bad guys. It would be cool to see people buy his I Am Gifted hats, which I thought Cousins, he gets knocked for not being a leader. What a Chad thing to do, to just show up to his press conference in an I Am Gifted hat, and when asked about it, immediately say, it's Alex Madison's brand. It is, he said it's not like, if a Vikings player has a brand, it's team licensed, in my opinion. That's me. That's not a Kevin O'Connell thing.
It was Kirk's doing.
Yes.
Yeah.
And he's like, that is my rule. That, the Thielen Foundation, he started listing charities and brands and stuff that he is happy to represent because, free advertising, if you will, for his teammates. I mean, what a leader. What a way to respond to that and show solidarity with Alex Mattison. I thought that was really telling, and it put I listened to that on my way home, and in clicking on the video while I was driving, I saw Coke in this hat that really didn't fit him. It wasn't daddish.
Not his style.
Not his style. But I saw him in that, and I was like, that's really goofy looking. I wonder, like, whose is that? And of course, it was Alex Madison's. So you have to give Coke a shout out, for being a really supportive teammate, and that I've said my piece on it personally.
Last, just two things I'll say on this. CJ Ham was a big support for Alex on the way home from Philly. It's not surprising. CJ is not only his backfield mate, but he's also just a very, very solid individual. He's been a captain now for a couple of years, I believe, and he is a leader and it goes without saying. And his personality is one of embrace, and it's it makes sense. It was cool to hear that. The other just last thing about the I Am Gifted Foundation, you can just Google it and learn more about it. But really, the short version is that they focus on supporting mental health and suicide prevention awareness. So really cool, really just very important work that they're doing, supporting a lot of kids back in his hometown in California as well as the Twin Cities. So
Yeah.
support them, check them out,
And the hats
and
come in purple.
they do.
So they will
Yep,
match your jersey if you are
exactly.
wondering, if you don't want to buy a UCLA colored hat or like a Boise State colored hat because that's where he attended college. They do
Yeah,
come in purple. The one Cousins was wearing was purple, and it's a nice hat. I think I'm gonna get
yeah,
one. The goal is to wear an I Am Gifted hat on the show at some point next week.
I like that.
That's my goal. So, all right, are we?
Anything else you want to say about Dalton Risner? Or have you said your piece there as well?
I think that the conversation that we should have, and I think this goes more. I kind of want to wait until we talk about the Chargers game as
Good
I
idea.
fix my shout's a little too short. Um, I think I wait until the Chargers game. I don't know how much he plays on Sunday
Yeah,
with the trade happening when it did, but I do think it's very funny that we did a show about what can the Vikings do on this mini bye to kind of turn the tides and correct right the ship and get back to Super Bowl team. And I threw out some names. I was like, apparently Dalton Risner's just not happening. The Vikings don't want him. So I was like, Lyle Collins is out there. Maybe we can kick him inside and let him play guard and see if he can do that. And I was throwing out names. And, of course, the Vikings immediately said, well, the guy from Ohio is saying we don't want Dalton Risner, so he's an idiot. Sign him immediately. I do think it was funny that the team was acting like, we wanted, like, you wanted him, he wanted to be here. Oh, you wanted him here, he wanted himself here now, and we wanted him here. And it's like, well, you could have had him here the last 2 weeks, and he might have helped out, and we might not be 0-2 right now. But hindsight's 2020, I guess.
yeah.
Who knows?
It is curious that it did take this long. Kevin O'Connell didn't get into specifics really of why they waited or why now, which I think is probably good. You don't want to throw a player under the bus, nor do you want to put put Dalton on the wrong foot, moving forward where it makes it seem like he's sort of just an afterthought. So
Yeah.
probably good that he just kept it in check, but just the only real detail that I've seen in the contract is it's basically this year, 1 year, up to $4 million. So it's very much prove it. Although it is the highest amount of money that any of our guards are making this year. So take that how you will.
Yeah.
Other
So.
yeah, other things that and I should say that piece of information came from Ben Gessling of the Star Tribune. Granted, I could have looked that up on Spotrac, but got to cite my sources. The other thing that they did in the mini buy, sort of not mini buy because it happened like 2 hours before the show tonight. Cam Akers is a member of the Minnesota Vikings. He's probably on a plane right now to Minneapolis. He has been a member of the Los Angeles Rams. He has had a fumbling problem, which is ironic, considering the state of the Vikings offense, in that we can move the ball no problem. We just like to drop it a lot. So it basically, I think from what I saw, Jordan, correct me if I'm wrong, but a 2026 pick swap with the Rams.
It is I saw this on Twitter and I can't remember myself because I'm not good at journalism, but it is the Vikings are giving up a 6th. The Rams gave us Cam Akers and a 7th in 2020. All of this in 2026. So that draft is a long time from now, and I want to let you finish your take before I give my take on the trade. But let's just remember we're talking about draft picks for when my daughter's starting kindergarten. So It's a while down the road.
It seems very much, I mean, the way I put it was like stealing candy from a baby. Like, it's just, yes, the Vikings they moved back one round, but it's in 3 years. The value of a draft pick in 3 years is almost negligent in the current state. You don't know where the team's going to be at. You don't know what your needs are going to be. You don't know what position in the draft you're going to be. Like, if it's, let's just say the Vikings win the Super Bowl in 2025 and the Rams finish last, that pick swap is going to be basically nothing. So it's there's really not too much value in what they gave up. You're sort of just taking a flyer on a guy, and there's not a whole lot you can lose. It's adding depth to the running back room, and they're going to have to do some roster shuffling, because they've already have 3 on the active roster with Gaskin and Chandler and Mattison. So either they add him to the active roster and they shift somebody off, or they're going to have to do some sort of shuffle. But
Yeah.
It seems very much worth the low investment, and I don't have any issue with it. If anything, it can be an upside play, and if he doesn't splash, then who really cares?
Yeah.
Last just thing I'll say on it is it's another familiarity type move. Cam Akers, Kevin O'Connell worked together in their Rams days, so there's familiarity there. He should be able to learn and know the offense very quickly. I have no issue with it. I think it's good. I'm not like jumping for joy for it, but he's a running back that has shown flashes, but has had a fumbling bugaboo and has sort of, fallen out of the graces of the Rams coaches, and big reason why he's gone now.
And somehow last season they did this same thing where they were like, we are trading Cam Akers. And they told the entire league, hey, we're trading him. We don't want him.
Yep.
And it seemed like there was no interest. And of course, the Vikings had Cook and Mattison. And so now the Vikings don't have Cook. So the Vikings are interested because, they have the Rams former offensive coordinator. Yeah, sure. We'll swap picks with you. Like you said, stealing candy from a baby. I do wonder when you say stealing candy from a baby, it feels like taking those stupid little the Nico or Necco candies. Are you familiar with those? Maybe it's an Ohio thing. No. They're like giant Smarties, but they taste bad. And I just wonder, did we take good candy? Or did we take like a bit of honey and it's a nice piece of candy? Or did we take a beehive with angry bees in it and it's actually a wasp's nest and we don't want it? I'm going back and forth in my head, and I feel like I haven't had enough time to fully process the trade. I don't know if this speaks more for what Kevin O'Connell thinks of, because I do think this is a Kevin O'Connell going to Kwesi and saying, hey, if we can get him cheap, get him. I would like him on the team. Yeah. I don't know if it speaks more to O'Connell's opinion of Cam Akers as a player and what he could bring to the offense, or if it speaks more detrimentally to Ty Chandler and Kine Wongwu in what they were able to do in training camp and put, on film in preseason games and etc. I guess Dwayne McBride as well, because it kind of feels like the Vikings don't have an RB2, and we were kind of led to believe that the days of, one running back dominating the game and the backup getting 2 touches a game, those were behind the Vikings. It was going to be a committee. It was going to be, 15 snaps for each running back, and there was going to be a lot of ins and outs. Now it kind of seems like that's more of a possibility, but through the first 2 games, it wasn't. It was the Alex Mattison show, and whether it was Mattison, whether it was, in my opinion, it was the O-line, it wasn't a good show the first 2 weeks. And so I think Mattison is still the guy. I think that, if you had to say that it's going to be 51-49, I think it would be Mattison 51 and Akers 49. But I do think it's an indictment of the running back depth on this team and kind of what the future looks like for a Ty Chandler, a Kine Wongwu. I don't think Kine Wongwu is ever going to be a starting running back in the NFL. At this point, I think that we all saw the upside with the kick returns and everything, and we thought, that guy would be a great guy to get the ball in his hands. Maybe he can't lead an offensive line as he's running as well as he can, a kick return unit. Maybe he's gone once he comes back off of the injured reserve. If they don't want him to be the kick returner. I'm sure that they'll keep him. I mean, he was like a third or fourth round draft pick, I believe, maybe even later. So I'm sure that he'll be the kick returner. But it's interesting. It's definitely interesting.
Yeah.
He's another guy. I don't expect him to have much impact this week, but as the season goes on, I think you see him get mixed in more and more, and he ends up being a decent sized contributor to the team as towards the end of the year for sure.
Yeah. It's a really good point about the running back depth, and I think at this point it's almost like we talk about small sample size with 2 games. It's almost even less than small sample size because the Vikings have ran the ball like 20 times this year, which is insane through 2 games. And so it's almost like not even possible to have an idea of where their depth is at because they just haven't been able to get the running game going. And maybe that's a chicken or the egg thing. Maybe it's like, well, we can't get the running game going because we don't have any depth and we don't have the right backs. But I think you and I would both argue that the running game is more of a function of offensive line play than it is a specific person carrying the ball, unless that person is Saquon Barkley, Adrian Peterson, someone in that caliber. So it's it's interesting. I think Ty Chandler, showed some flashes in the preseason. I think he's definitely got a future with this team if he keeps ascending. But I also think it's pretty clear this team wants to win this year, and I don't think they're satisfied with we'll just tank it. I think the idea of running out the season, letting Kirk walk or trading Kirk, and God forbid trading Jefferson midseason. All these things that fans are speculating on Twitter about. It's pretty clear the team doesn't want to do that. They're adding depth pieces. They're bringing in an offensive lineman who's making more money than his counterparts. They're doing these things that make it very clear that they want to really compete this year. And maybe they lose to Los Angeles on Sunday, and all this looks foolish, and they're 0-3, and they should have just tanked it. But it's pretty clear that that's not what they want to do.
Yeah, and so, they're not signing guys to like 3-year deals. They're not going to be hampered by any of these guys. I think they're trying to win this year. I like the approach they're taking. Hey, we want to win. We're trying. The only thing I would really like to have seen them do is I would have liked to have seen them sign like an Akeem Hicks, a Linval Joseph, some just meat nose tackle to play, even if it was like rotational. It would be nice to have that. But that might be a bit of an overreaction to Philadelphia just kind of dominating the Vikings offensive line on Thursday night. So, kind of who knows. I do very quickly, 2 minutes or less here. I have a take that I have to say into a microphone at some point and upload it to, wherever you find your podcast and the YouTube. Make sure you're subscribed in both places. I was listening to the Triple C today. That's the clown Colin Cowherd. And he was talking about like what the Jets would give up to get Coke. And they were talking about like 5th round picks. And I almost threw up as I was listening to that. I was like, what are we doing? Because if you ask me, if I'm in the Jets' shoes, I have 2 scenarios. I can give up a 1st round pick for Kirk Cousins because the conversation starts at a 1st and something. And we negotiate and we settle on like, okay, well, we'll just give them to you for your 1st round pick. And okay, we think we can win the Super Bowl. We thought we were just a quarterback away. We'll get Kirk Cousins. He can operate this team and the defense will be good. And we have Breece Hall. We'll win the Super Bowl. Maybe, push your chips into the table. Let's get nuts. The other option is just be bad. Just tank. Just let Zach Wilson play the season. Unfortunately, you kind of have to tell your players like, hey, we'll get him next year. And you end up with like a top 5 pick. You trade that top 5 pick to a team like the Vikings that's going to be in the quarterback market in the draft. You get a bunch of draft capital, and then you can draft an offensive line and another wide receiver and, whatever you feel your needs are. And then you just put it all on a 40-year-old quarterback coming off of an Achilles injury in which he got an experimental surgery to repair it and is using dolphin smut to try and heal the tendon. I don't know if you saw that. He's using dolphin mating noises. He says that it's beneficial to the healing process of the human body. He's out there, man. He's out there. He's sitting in the dock and listening to dolphins do the beast with or make the beast with two backs, because that's what heals your Achilles, I guess. And so if the Jets want to do that, they can do that. The Jets are screwed no matter what. And the idea that the Vikings would be like, yeah, here's a 5th-round pick. I'm pretty sure we'll get a compensatory pick for Cousins. And I think the compensatory picks are going to start in the 3rd round. It's based off the contract. Cousins is going to be a top 7 quarterback contract signing, probably in like Denver or something. No, shut up. Stupid.
Yeah.
Nothing. It has to be a 1st-round pick. Had to put that into the atmosphere. Do you want to talk about 0-2 teams?
Yes. So I wanted to talk about this because, there's always these stats floating around when it comes to the, after week 2. There's always a handful of 0-2 teams, some of which are surprising and some of which are not. And so I wanted to just talk about the 8 0-2 teams, or is it 9? I think it might be 9 0-2 teams, and which of them have the best chance, to make a run, make the playoffs. I believe it's around, basically a 12% chance that they will historically make the playoffs. So
yes,
Vikings fans, you're looking at 12%. To me, when I looked at the list of the 9 teams or so, Texans, no, they're done. I don't think the Bears will make the playoffs. I don't think the Patriots have enough of anything offensively to make the playoffs. Panthers, they're not a playoff team. Their offense can hardly move the ball. I think to me, it is the Vikings, the Chargers, and the Bengals are really the only 3 that I would give much of a puncher's chance. And that is not me saying that all 3 will make the playoffs, because I think, if the Vikings lose, basically the loser of the Vikings-Chargers game is going to be hurting. Andrew Kramer, another Star Tribune guy on the Access Vikings podcast this afternoon, said that I think 1 out of the last 99 teams to start 0-3 have made the playoffs. So it's slim. Basically, at best, 2 of these teams will probably make the playoffs this year. And, we can talk about more Vikings Chargers in a minute, but because, they happen to play each other in 3 days. The Bengals, I say that only out of respect, because of what they have been the last 2-3 years. The Joe Burrow injury is concerning, and that's basically where it starts and where it stops. If Joe Burrow is healthy and plays out the year and plays at least mostly to his standard, they will be at least a competitive enough team to fight for a wild card. Maybe come back and win the division if Baltimore, falls apart like they normally do. That's just it seems like a big if right now, though, because Burrow is now in his 4th season. He has missed a bunch of time in training camp. I think last year he had an appendectomy, so he missed a lot of training camp. Didn't obviously matter. They had a good season. He tore his ACL and his MCL his rookie year, or something horrific. It was a terrible injury. Missed most of that year. And now he's got this calf, I believe. And it's just another soft tissue injury, another just sort of, I guess I can't say another soft tissue injury because he hasn't he had a history of those, but it's another injury. It's like the 3rd in 4 years, and it's just concerning if I'm a Bengals fan.
Yeah.
And obviously the team has done very, very well the last 2 years, but looking at their current trajectory in a very, black and blue bloody division where they beat up on each other, and they start in the division 0-2. They lost 2 division games already. It's not looking good for them, but I say that they have a chance simply because they have obviously shown that they can do it. They started 0-2 last year, and they made the playoffs, made the AFC Championship game. So that's kind of my thoughts.
Yeah.
What about from you?
So I wrote down all 9 teams, and I agree with you. The Cardinals, Broncos, Bears, Panthers, Texans aren't going anywhere. The Broncos, people are like, oh, the Broncos almost got Washington. And I think I told you before the season I thought Washington was going to the NFC Championship game.
I don't remember that. That's spicy.
I think it was a text. It wasn't. I didn't say it into a microphone, but I'm saying it into a microphone strictly so that way I can walk it back because Dallas looks really good.
Amazing.
Really good. But like Denver, they got up quick and then just as quickly, they fell apart. And then they hit a Hail Mary to be down 2, and then they didn't get the 2-point, and there was probably pass interference. But like, you had an 18-point lead, and you had to hit a Hail Mary at home to Sam Howell in his first ever away start in the NFL. Just not good. Just not a good team. Sean Payton's not a good coach. Still don't think he's a good coach. I just sorry about it. Maybe I'm a little salty because of 09, but I think the Patriots have looked competitive against the Eagles and the Dolphins. Those games were not out of reach. They've got Christian Gonzalez, who they drafted in the first round. He's starting to look like a stud. The Belichick defense is looking pretty good. I mean, I think Miami's offense should hang 56 on everyone they play. And the Patriots held them to like 24, I think. And, of course, they had that comeback against the Eagles where they were an inch away from extending a potential go-ahead drive in the fourth quarter. But the guy it's been back-to-back weeks. What'd you say?
He didn't get his foot down.
Yeah, he just in week 1 he was an inch away from toe tapping, and in week 2 they're like Stouting Goud was an inch away from getting a first down on a lateral that would have extended the drive and let him go down. So I'm not sold that the Pats are just dead in the water. They've looked pretty good as my baby has a meltdown. Obviously, the Chargers and Vikings, we'll talk about them, but when you have Justin Herbert as your QB1 and you have all those weapons, if they stay healthy, they're going to be dangerous. Plus, they get to play the Raiders and the Broncos. Twice each. And then the Vikings, we can just clean up the fumbles. And I wrote down that the Vikings
go 15-2.
Yeah, we're going to go 15-2. The Vikings I have written down, as of right now, we are not situational masters. I'm officially declaring the Vikings are situational jesters because we don't look good out there. We look like we are just joking around and who cares. And but getting into the Bengals, I think the Bengals tried to address their offensive line problems in the wrong way. The Bengals said, we have O-line problems. We've signed guys. It still looks bad. Burrow has a calf injury. We're running a very West Coast, get the ball out quick offense. And unfortunately, that's not what got you to the Super Bowl and to the AFC Championship game, very close to the Super Bowl last year. What got you there was Joe Burrow almost dying every game and chucking it deep and finding open guys down the field. And it was a deep passing attack. And you have to play that. And you have to commit to that. And right now it's bubble screens and it's, quick go outs and it's just not very good. They don't look put together. They look like Joe Burrow missed training camp and, a lot of the offseason stuff with a calf injury. I'll also point out that you look at their schedule and, they had the Browns, which I live in Bengals country and I also live in Browns country. And it's kind of a well-known fact that the Browns, as they are built right now, beat the Bengals for some reason. Like, they just match up against them in a way that it's like, yeah, the Browns are going to beat them. They've beat them like 6 out of the last 7 times or something. So a lot of people thought that was a loss week 1, especially with Burrow's injuries and stuff. Week 2 was supposed to be the hard-fought win, and it ended up being a hard-fought loss. And then week 3 was like, okay, well, the Rams are going to suck, and Cooper Kupp's out. That's an easy win. Oh, shoot. Puka Nacua might be the greatest wide receiver to ever play the game, dropping 32 fantasy points, sitting in my flex. I was one of the guys who stouted him and didn't leave him on the bench because I got a big one.
Hey.
Yeah, I still lost. But Puka Nacua, Matt Stafford's there. They just gave San Francisco all they wanted. That's not a guaranteed win. Now Burrow might not play in that game. And if he does stress the calf and plays in that game, you have to wonder, does the calf hold up or does he injure it more severely? And God
Yep.
forbid we have a second Achilles injury in the NFL. And I don't want to speak anything into existence. I want Joe Burrow to be healthy. I've said it multiple times on this show. The NFL is better when we have elite quarterbacks. So I would prefer for Joe Burrow to play because he's elite and he's fun. And my city, gets pretty excited when Joe Burrow's doing what he can do. And it's always fun to go into work and see everybody, happy and giddy. So yeah,
What's the mood around Cincinnati with the Bengals right now?
5 thumbs down on the Bengals right now. Zach, a lot of people don't like Zach Taylor down here. I'm just going to be honest. They didn't like him when he got extended, and they didn't like, he came in and they were confused as to why they hired a quarterbacks coach to be their head coach. And then they got Burrow, and it was like, okay, well, Joe Burrow's going to fix everything. And then he did. But now they're starting to say, well, the offense, like it's not like they're calling plays that like they're not running the offense they have traditionally. Like I kind of pointed out, they're running this screens and quick passes, and they're trying to compensate for a bad O-line to keep Burrow clean. And so now they're like, oh, well, now it's play calling. That's Zach Taylor. And so they're kind of back on the anti-Zach Taylor bandwagon. He's extended for 3 more years. And Mike Brown's a cheapskate. So, yeah, things are down. Bengals fans are down. They are just as bad as Vikings fans right now. They are kicking themselves because they think that they should win the Super Bowl. Mm-hmm. And I can't blame them. Their offense is stupid. And the defense, I wrote this down too, and I didn't even really get into it. The defense had a lot of turnover. They lost Stouting Kono, Stouting safety, I believe a Stouting defensive tackle, Stouting linebacker. I mean, like, they have a lot of young players stepping into that defense. Vikings fans should know you don't always just, have the guy step up and be as good as the last guy. There's going to be drop-offs, and so, yeah, it's not looking too hot down here.
Well, let's wrap with a little Chargers talk, shall we? Like we've talked about, a couple 0-2 teams that probably didn't expect to be 0-2, going into sort of a must-win game. The Vikings favor is that it's at US Bank, so they get the home crowd, they get back to the home feel, hopefully, and so that helps them in this situation. And yeah, it's a high stakes, high stress sort of. You got to go get this one for both teams. And one thing that I think I texted you this. My actually, I'll save it. I'll save it for my final thought, my hot take about this game. But when I look at this game, it's some of it's going to depend on who's out there, but that's kind of every NFL game. Austin Eckler didn't play in week 2. Obviously, Christian Darrisaw and Garrett Bradbury didn't play in week 2. Marcus Davenport again didn't play. All those guys are still on the injury report to some degree. Former Viking favorite Eric Kendricks, he is also on the injury report. I believe he did not play week 2 either. Yeah. So there's some, names in decent profile that will not be playing. I think the biggest one that the Vikings, would be concerned with, if you will, would be the Austin Eckler. I think he changes their offense. He is a multifaceted, multi-skilled running back who is about 5'6" and is impossible to tackle and quick, and he's like Darren. Yeah, he's like Darren Sproles, but bigger, like stronger and burlier. And he's a fantastic player that I think he led the NFL in touchdowns last year. He didn't play week 2. He did not practice today. So it's something to keep an eye on. He's really their only main one that's, probably not going to play. Yeah. Eric Kendricks might not play either, but let's be honest, Eric Kendricks is a shell of himself at this point in his career. Yeah. So, last thing I'll say on that, for the Vikings, Bradbury and Davenport again did not practice today. So concerning. I wouldn't expect Bradbury to play. It's a flare-up of a similar back issue from last year. He has hardly played at all this year. So I wouldn't expect him week 3. The extended time off here hopefully helped, but we're probably looking at another Austin Schlottmann start
Yeah.
On Sunday, especially because even though I believe Dalton Risner has some center experience, I don't think they're going to trot him out at center 4 days after signing. I mean that seems crazy because playing center is a much more cerebral position than any other offensive line position. And you got to do all the checks. You're basically the quarterback of the offense, of the offensive line, that is. So I'd be really shocked for someone who's just learning the playbook to go play center. So it's probably going to be Austin Schlottmann,
Yeah.
again, starting on
I
Sunday.
think best case scenario is if Risner does, get in or something. I think the best case is Ed Ingram's spot. I think Schlottmann is a fine backup Cinto. I think you'd
Yeah.
prefer it to be Bradbury, but I wouldn't necessarily say that Schlottmann has been like a giant problem. My hot take for this game, I'm not even going to save it for my final thoughts. The winner of this game is making the playoffs. The loser is out of the playoffs. It is kind of just point, like you said earlier, you kind of hit the nail on the head. The loser of this game is in a bad way. Being 0-3, you don't really make the playoffs at 0-3. Being 1-2, you've got some hope. There's light at the end of the tunnel. You still feel like your season's alive. 0-3, it's panic mode for both teams. You might see Brandon Staley get fired if they start 0-3 when the last 4 games you've seen from him, while blowing an 11-point lead, losing to the Vikings in whatever tragic fashion that would be, losing a shootout where you had the ball with like a minute and a half to go and all you needed was a field goal and your offense was unable to come up with anything, and then the playoff game where you blow the 1,000,000-point lead that you had over Jacksonville. So that's kind of my hot take for this game. Winner's in.
Yeah.
I think that they're both very talented teams. The loser's out, unfortunately, because I just don't think you come back from that. My key matchup, and this is always my key matchup because every team has good wide receivers, but I have a specific strategy that I want to employ here. The defensive backs of the Minnesota Vikings have to be on their A game because Keenan Allen and Mike Williams and even Quentin Johnston and
Joshua Palmer.
Josh Palmer. They have some good receivers. And they are going to want to throw the ball. They have Kellen Moore, their OC. I don't think he is, I'm going to say, seasoned enough. I'm not going to, say that he's a bad OC. I'm not going to say anything like that. But I don't think he's seasoned enough to just say, we're pounding the ball 50 times in this game because they can't stop throwing. I think he wants to throw the ball, and he wants to have MVP quarterback Justin Herbert, and he wants to show off the weapons. So I think that they're going to throw the ball even if the run game's working. The DBs, and I'm thinking back to one play from Thursday night where Theo Jackson got mossed by Devonta Smith because he didn't play the ball. He just kind of got in the receiver's face because that's not a penalty anymore. You have to play the ball. You can't play the receiver. You have to play the ball. And if you don't, Keenan Allen's going to embarrass a couple of guys on Sunday. And Mike Williams is going to embarrass some guys on Sunday because they will go up, they will high point the ball, and they will catch it. And, face scouting a guy with both hands up, that's not going to be enough. And if the ball's a little underthrown, you'll get called for pass interference. So you got to get your head around. You got to make a play on the ball. Even if I'm not even asking for you to pick off every deep pass. Even if it's just getting your hand up and just swatting the ball so that way they can't catch it. I'm fine with that. I'm fine with deflections. You just can't let them moss you all game long. And I am concerned that will happen. Again, just because of that Theo Jackson play that happened on Thursday night to Devonta Smith. I believe that was in the first quarter.
Yeah, first drive of the game.
Flipping it over, I said this on my mini-buy thing. I want to see a lot of shotgun. The Chargers have pass rush. They are going to be coming after Coke. I want to see Coke. I don't want to see Coke under Cinto doing naked bootlegs, hoping that Khalil Mack bites on the run. I've seen Khalil Mack drive Cousins into the turf one too many times for my liking from his Chicago days. I'm over it. I would like to see Cousins line up in the shotgun. I think the Vikings are going to have to throw the ball quite a bit in this game to have success offensively. So throw the ball. Establish that when you line up in the shotgun, you're throwing the ball to your plethora of receiving options. and then start running the ball off of it. Start
Yep.
using the pass to set up the run, and then maybe you can get a couple of 4 or 5 yard gains, set up some shot plays on second and shout. But that's kind of I'm gonna be hammering that nail all season long. We should be running out of the shotgun. We should be. This should be a lot of shotgun because we just need that extra second to get the playoff, basically. Unless Dalton Risner transforms the team, but like we kind of talked about already, I don't believe he's going to play unless there's an injury, which we've already had so many. So, what matchups are you looking at for keys to success, whatever buzzwords we want to use?
I mean, I'll touch on that. What you mentioned about the defensive backs. I think it's important to note, and you sort of said this without saying it. The Chargers basically have 3 Mike Evans body type wide receivers. We were talking about how Mike Evans was a key matchup for a Caleb Evans to take Mike Evans because of the size and the physicality. And unfortunately, the Vikings don't have 3 of Caleb Evanses. And so it's going to be really interesting with Johnston and is it Johnston or Johnson? Is there a T in there?
Johnston.
Okay. TCU rookie.
Yes.
So yeah, those 3, Johnston, Keenan Allen, and Mike Williams, they're all really big dudes. Like, could probably play tight end just based on body type. And then they also have 2 very serviceable tight ends in Gerald Everett and I believe Donald Parham Jr.
Yes.
So it's an embarrassment of riches on offense. It's like it's so funny because these teams are almost like the same.
They really are.
Offensive like fireworks shows, sort of just like waiting to happen. The Chargers are probably a more complete offense at this point, but the Vikings probably have more of a puncher's chance defensively than the Chargers. The Chargers defense outside of basically a few pass rushers is just not good. Derwin James is a great player, safety, but really they have given up almost anything the first 2 weeks that the opposition has wanted to take.
Well, it doesn't help that they played, Hall of Fame bound quarterback Ryan Tannehill last week. I mean, he's been shredding defenses left, right, and center for his entire career. So let's cut him a little slack.
It was almost like ugly to watch the gaping holes down the middle that they were allowing on deep shots, and it's a situation where if there's a chance to get the run game going, it's this week. And if there's another chance to get, big chunk plays down the field, it's this week. I don't expect, I don't expect the Chargers to put, too much of hurt on the Vikings offense. It's really a situation where if you look at it, at least on paper going into this game, the Vikings lose this game if they shoot themselves in the foot again. It's sort of setting up to be sort of this like repeat situation where if they play clean football, they probably win this game because I don't see the Chargers having much of a chance to stop them. So that's kind of where I'm at with it. I just think, especially if Austin Eckler's out, that limits the offense for the Chargers. It's going to be a shootout. I think the Vikings defense is going to be better as the season goes on. I think, Brian Flores, you give him 10 days to prepare. That'll probably help a lot for this game. So I think the Vikings have the advantage when it comes to preparation and hopefully more chess pieces on defense, being at home, more rest. So it's definitely advantage Vikings in a lot of sort of these, non-numerical sort of, edges, if you will. Yeah, I mean, what else do you got? Anything else that needs to be addressed?
I'm disappointed. I don't want to say I'm happy that a player is injured and isn't playing, but for the Vikings' season hopes and aspirations, it's a huge advantage that Eckler isn't playing. My original
True.
take on my key matchup that I needed to see happen for a win to occur was the Vikings had to tackle Austin Eckler in space, and it was going to come down to like the safeties and the corners making plays in space because they were going to be able to just dump the ball off to him. Yeah, especially with how much we blitz. They call the screen in
Yeah.
the right situation. Eckler's gone. It's and I was expecting
Yeah.
a huge day from him. So him being banged up is definitely tough. My baby's having another meltdown, so I'm gonna mute my mic. I'm gonna let you do your game ball and your score prediction, and
Sweet.
I will hope that she's calmed down by then.
Sweet. For the record, I'm only hearing just a little bit of baby noise in the background, so the mic isn't picking up too much. Score prediction, like I said, it's going to be a shootout. I wouldn't be surprised if both teams scored 30. I think the Vikings win 30-26. I think we're going to get a turnover or two, which limit the Chargers, offensive opportunities. And, frankly, similar to how the Vikings played the first couple weeks where, maybe the Vikings aren't forcing a ton of punts, but you turn the ball over, you force some field goal attempts, and that score shrinks from 34-26. So I think Vikings win by 4. It's going to be a lot of offense. I think it'll be a fun game to watch. To that point on turnovers, I think Cam Bynum is going to get an interception in this game. He's someone who has been talking a lot about taking the ball away. He had kind of that, ball magnetism to him last year. It seemed like he was always coming up with turnovers and takeaways in the right times. Even if he had an up and down season and, first year starter, in a bad defense, it really, maybe didn't lend itself to an overall successful season, but he was someone who took the ball away multiple times when it mattered. Off the top of my head, I'm thinking that Dolphins game when Jalen Waddle fumbled, I think he either caused the fumble or picked it up. And then that Jets game, he sealed it with an interception at the goal line. So he's someone who I expect to get an interception on Sunday. He's going to get my game ball. He's been talking about taking the ball away. He's been talking about how they need to take the ball away. And I think he's going to deliver on Sunday.
I think that's beautiful, and it goes hand in hand with my prediction. We're actually kind of close this week. I have the Vikings winning 31-20. I do think, and this is not like we'll up 31-0, and then in garbage time the Chargers score 20. This is the Vikings are up by 4 points. It's 24-20. We get a stop on defense at the mid fourth quarter point, and then we have a nice little 5-minute drive to not seal the game, but give them the ball back with like a minute and a half, and we get a touchdown. And I just think that this has the makings of a get right game for the Vikings. I think the mini bye is definitely going to help. Players are going to be able to kind of put their minds at ease, give themselves an opportunity to get their bodies right. And Justin Jefferson's been balling out this season, and I'm starting to tease my game ball here. Jefferson's been balling out, but Jefferson does not throw the ball to himself. And so my game ball goes to MVP front runner after week 3, Kirk Cousins, who I think is going to throw for well over 300 yards. I think he's going to have 3 or more touchdown passes in this game. I think he's going to be dishing in this one, and I hope that it is not, he has to throw the ball, because if he doesn't, we will, we don't have an offense. I hope that we do have a little bit of a running game, but I expect Jefferson to find the end zone because he hasn't yet, and I would like to see him hit the new Goody moves. Which, look, man, I love the Goody as much as the next guy, and this is the old Simpson meme: the old man yells at cloud. But the Goody 2 is just the Goody with it's just different. Like, oh, the airplane Goody, it's the Goody, but you do this, and it's like, what? Like,
I'm pretty sure I've already seen people. I've already seen people do that.
Yeah,
it's not like that's even a new thing.
I'm trying the Southern dip Goody, and you just do the little finger dip can thing as you Goody. Like, what are we doing here, guys? So the goodie 2 is stupid, but I do want to see Jefferson break out. Maybe 2 goodies. There you go. There's a little wild play for you. But I think it's Coke. I think Coke's just going to be wheeling dealing all over the field. He's going to outplay Justin Herbert, and he is going to I think you're going to hear, like, Get Up is going to talk like, hey, Kirk Cousins should be in the MVP race. He's playing really well. He's leading the league in passing yards, or he's top 2 or 3, whatever, and he's throwing touchdowns, and the Vikings won't have a turnover. That's my spicy take. No turnovers. Clean game.
Good one.
Maybe we get, like you said, maybe, Cam Bynum comes up with one. I'd love to see that. One last thing, and this will be my final thought, and I'll pass it off to you to walk us home. Apologies for the long show. Also, thank you if you have stayed this long into the show and you're listening to us ramble on about our football team. But really quickly, I do have to say, make sure you're shopping Unified and follow the show on Twitter at LTB Vikings and follow this guy over here at Will Bad Lose. Just excellent content, even though he's a Twins fan, and they took the series from my Reds today. They won 2 out of 3. We got you on day 1 though, and I felt like you were going to be wearing a Cincinnati hat tonight.
I know. But for the listeners out there, I told Jordan that if the Reds took 2 out of 3 or swept the Twins earlier this week, and series ended on Wednesday afternoon, that I would have worn Reds apparel. My wife spent some time in Cincinnati a few years ago over the summer, and did some training for her education degree there. So she spent a lot of time in the city, got some Reds gear. I got a retro Reds t-shirt and baseball cap and everything. So I would have been rocking some Reds gear on the show, but for
the listeners, I've done this entire show without a shirt on because I think, what did you want me to shave into my chest? Like Twins.
A TC into your chest hair.
Yeah, TC is just shaved into my burly chest. So you missed an entire show of... This show's had everything, man. It's had chest hair, dolphins doing unspeakables. It's had Dalton Risner and Cam Akers. It's just, man, this has been a good one. This has been a fun one. But yeah, thank you for staying on. Follow him at Will Bad Lose, and of course check out VikingsTerritory.com. The Vikings have to start playing clean football. That's going to be my final thought. I said they weren't going to have turnovers in this game. It was so infuriating that we spent a good portion of last week's pregame show talking about, the Vikings can beat the Eagles. We just have to play clean football, and Kirk Cousins has to play out of his mind. And Kirk Cousins said, bet, I'm going to show up and play out of my mind. But we just kept putting it on the ground, and it felt like every time a momentum swing would happen and the Vikings were about to either establish that, hey, we are winning this game, or they were going to say, we're not dead, we are coming back, they would turn the ball over. They'd put the ball on the ground. So I think that they have focused on fumbles a lot. I can't remember who said it, but it might have been like Alex Boone on his new podcast, talking about how someone has to step up and be the bad guy for the team and kind of light the fire under guys, and it's never fun to be that guy, but someone needs to. I think this is an interesting look at what Kevin O'Connell is going to do as a coach, because he's always been very, buddy player, joking around. I'd ride with this team until they won't let us take another effing snap, all these things, and he's been a very motivational guy, and like I said, he's just been a player's coach. You fumble the ball, or you turn the ball over 6 times in 2 weeks, and you should be 2-0, and you're 0-2. You gotta start telling people, nah, the buddy stuff is, I don't want to say it's dead, but you got to start being a little bit more of a hard ass, if I can use my one swear word per show. So
if there's a player on the Vikings who's going to be that, that type of leader in this, state of the team, who do you think it is?
Kirk Cousins. Just because I like to hear him say F. I like to hear him say the F word. Legitimately, I think it would have to be, and I'm like, who I want it to be. I want it to be Jefferson, and I want it to be Harrison Smith. But that's not really, I don't think, who they are. And also, as a wide receiver, if you start being bossy and demanding and stuff like that, you get labeled as a diva immediately. You're not a leader if you say, hey, we can't fumble the ball 5 times in 2 games. You're a diva for saying that kind of stuff. So I think that I'm trying to think now. Christian Darrisaw should be the hard ass. Christian Darrisaw should be the guy who goes out and says, you know what, look, man, I'm in year 3. we have good tackles. He should look at the guards and say, "Welcome to the team, Dalton. We stink because of the guards." And the rest of the offense, stop putting the ball on the ground. We can win some games. We can beat the Chargers. We can beat the Panthers. We can beat the Chiefs, and we're 3-2, and we're the Super Bowl favorites, and we're winning it all this year. And I want it to be somebody that's in that year 3-4 window that kind of takes over and says, "This is my team. This is, I'm the leader now, and I someone needs to step up and be the guy, be the bad guy." And if you win, you start winning, you're not a bad guy. You're just the guy who lit the fire. If you lose, then you're the bad guy, and that sucks. But I'm going to go with Deosol. Who do you think?
I think it's Jefferson. I totally understand where you're coming from with, like, he is very much like a positive guy. He's not a yeller and a screamer as far as we've really seen. He has a personality, obviously. He's not, just a lump on a log, but I think he's starting to understand and develop leadership qualities. He's got fire, that. And it's just a matter of directing it in the right spot. It's channeling the energy in the right direction. And I think after the Philadelphia game, during the Philadelphia game, I saw a lot of leadership from him that I did not even see in the first week, where I saw him pouting on the sideline after the game. I saw the fire there, but I did not see it directed in the right spot. The Philadelphia game, he basically put the loss on himself because of his fumble, even though he torched the Philadelphia secondary the entire game. And you could tell after that fumble, he completely owned it, didn't make any excuses about it, and he put his head forward and just moved. And so kind of those two things together, the fact that he has fire and the fact that he has developed leadership qualities here, I think it almost has to be him. He's the best player on the team. He's got a C on his jersey now. Like I think it has to be him, especially because it's the offense that is dropping the ball and putting the defense in bad situations. Now, the defense has to play better too in certain areas that we've talked about, the run game especially, and taking the ball away. But if a defender comes up and starts screaming at the offense to stop dropping the ball, that probably is a little annoying. So I think it almost has to be Justin Jefferson.
I really like that. I'm gonna make my final thoughts because we didn't actually. This has been a long show, so we didn't get a chance to talk about this. Darius Slay said on his podcast that Jefferson was locked. Did you see it? Is this breaking news to you? Oh my God!
It is.
Get ready to run through a wall. Darius Slay was talking about the Jefferson matchup. And he said Jefferson was, I'm not going to quote him because I don't know the exact quote, but he said Jefferson was locked in. He made a catch early in the game. Slay went up to him and said, "Nice grab." Jefferson didn't say anything to him, just turned back to the huddle, was very quiet, wasn't talking smack, wasn't being friendly, was very locked in. And Slay said, it was in that moment he was like, "Oh yeah? Like really, you're going to big time me like that?" And it kind of pissed Slay off. And Slay was like, "He's the best receiver in the game because I'm the best corner in the game. And every catch he made was contested, but he made them. Every single one. Like, I was right there. I was in his pocket, and he just kept making the catch, and he kept making the catch." And, of course, he doesn't say, "Wow, what a game by Cousins throwing the ball." No, he doesn't really say that. He just says, "What a game by Jefferson." But I was impressed with Jefferson on Thursday, and I think he's right. That loss could almost be on him for fumbling in the spot, which he did, because that's a 10-point swing.
So.
Yep. So, those are my final thoughts. I'll pass it off to you to get us out.
That's some good flowers from Darius Slay. Sprinkle a little trash talk in there too, subliminal trash talk, but it's I think Jefferson knew going into that matchup that Slay was a trash talker, and he knows he's not, and so there's really no point to engage in it. If you are someone who has that as a part of your game, then by all means go Kevin Garnett and just talk a bunch of smack. But it's not the way Justin Jefferson is wired. So,
and it's putting nice his head to see down, Slay understand like Jair Alexander, they triple teamed Jefferson for an entire game. he gets like 2 catches for like 15 yards, and he's like, I locked him down all game. I did it, guys. I'm the best corner in the league. It was me. I did it. And like he's talking all this smack after the game, and it's like, brother, he still lit you up this season for like 280 yards or something.
Yeah.
And he had one game where he had like 20. So, you guys went 1-1, I guess you could say. But it was nice to see a defensive back wide receiver, rivalry, I think you could call it.
Yeah.
And there was flowers given, and Slay is 100% right. Jefferson is the best receiver in the game. Yep. Slay was in his pocket the entire game, but Jefferson made the contested catches and showed why he's the best, and just continued to dominate and had a really good day against Darius Slay, who is 100 times better than Jair Alexander ever thought about being.
So now that you've had 2 final thoughts and I've commented on both your final thoughts, I'll be very quick with my final thoughts. Very first thing, Dalton Risner is a great quote. Watch his press conferences whenever he has them. He's hilarious. He's entertaining. He's engaging. He's, self-deprecating. Everything you want in an interview, he's got it. And the fact that he's an offensive guard just makes it so much better. He's the only offensive lineman on the team with personality, and it's fantastic. So go watch, listen to his interviews. He had one today. He'll probably have more throughout the week and, into the future. He's awesome. Don't even care if he's a bad player. He's a great interview. And the last, I'm kidding about that part. The last thing is my, slight hot take, very akin to Jordan's. Loser of the Vikings Chargers game is out. Winner is in the playoffs. To me, it's the loser is going to be the in-season Hard Knocks selection. Because, last year, I know they announced the Cardinals as the in-season much earlier. They announced it in May. So, frankly, they might not even be doing an in-season this year. It just might not happen because they haven't announced it yet. But if they do, it's going to be one of these 2 teams. The Vikings, their coach will not be on the hot seat because they went 13-4 the first season. It's year 2. You're not going to be firing a coach after second year. But Kirk Cousins will be on the hot seat insofar as he might get traded, or it's his last ride here, and there's going to be all that turmoil, and there's going to be anytime you can get Justin Jefferson on a screen, it's a win for the NFL. So they'd be all over that. Also, just the idea of a team going from 13-4 to 0-3 would be dramatic. For the Chargers, you mentioned it earlier, Brandon Staley is going to be, if the seat isn't hot, it's going to be on fire. He has been underwhelming to say the least on defense with his teams. He's a defensive coordinator by trade. So the fact that his defenses have been bad is just no good. So they're going to be in a tough spot if they fall to 0-3. So loser, get ready for some primetime television because you're going to be getting the Hard Knocks treatment.
Yeah, I think that's a good one.
That's all I got. Jordan, you want to close us down?
I think I said I think I plugged everything.
You said all the ads and stuff. So.
I gave like 6 final takes. I talked about the Jets. We talked about the Bengals a lot. This was a good show. This was a good one. Yeah. So we'll leave you guys like we always leave you. The schedule will be back to normal, by the way, next week. We'll record on Monday. We'll post throughout the week. We'll record, you guys know the schedule. At least you should by now. Thanks for tuning in. Leave you with a skull, y'all.